All right, let's dive in, shall we? Today, we're going deep into the 2019 film Joker.
Oh, interesting choice.
Yeah, and you, our awesome listeners, sent in excerpts from the film's Wikipedia page and the original screenplay.
Excellent sources. Should give us plenty to unpack.
Exactly. I think the big question we're tackling today is how did this film, this genre, make such a massive impact? Like, what's really going on beneath the surface here?
Yeah, good question. Lots to consider there.
Right. And just to give you a taste of what we're dealing with, Joaquin Phoenix is absolutely insane commitment to the role.
Oh, yeah. Heard about that.
We're talking 52 pounds lost, total immersion in the world of pathological laughter.
Yeah. Guy went deep, man. Deep.
Intense. And then there's the whole controversy the film sparked. Did it glorify violence? Or was it actually a social critique? And on top of all of that, it became a cultural phenomenon. Joker massacre protests, endless debates about its meaning. It really got under people's skin.
It definitely got people talking, that's for sure. So what are your first impressions from these sources? What jumped out at you?
Honestly. What struck me first is how Joker just throws the whole superhero movie playbook right out the window.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's not your typical comic book movie.
No capes, no crazy CGI battles.
Right.
Instead, we get this deep dive into the mind of Arthur Fleck. This guy, he's troubled, man, like deeply troubled, teetering on the edge of a complete breakdown.
Yeah, and the setting, Gotham City. It's portrayed as this decaying, almost nightmarish version of 1980s New York.
Oh, absolutely. Gotham's practically a character in itself.
Totally. It's gritty, claustrophobic, like the city itself is this crushing weight on Arthur.
You hit the nail on the head. When you mentioned that 1980s New York inspiration, instantly thought of films like Taxi Driver and The King of Comedy.
Yeah, the Wikipedia page mentions those as influences, and you can definitely see it.
That raw urban anxiety, it's all over Joker.
In those films, like Joker, they're character studies above all else.
Right, you're meant to get inside the protagonist's head.
Understand their motivations, even when those motivations are disturbing or downright horrifying.
Exactly. And in Arthur Fleck's case, the screenplay paints this incredibly detailed portrait of a man who is just not coping at all.
Not even a little bit.
He's this struggling clown, dreams of being a comedian, but then he's got this neurological condition.
The uncontrollable laughter, right?
Yeah, at the worst possible times, too. Like, talk about bad timing.
It's a tough situation to be in, to say the least.
And it seems like everything just keeps going wrong for him. He gets beaten up, loses his job, his social services get cut. It's like the whole world is against him.
The screenplay really drives that point home.
There's this scene where he's talking to a social worker, and it's heartbreaking. He says, "All I have are negative thoughts."
Wow.
And she's supposed to help him, but even the system is failing him. It's like a punch in the gut.
It's a powerful moment that really highlights the film's social commentary. It's not subtle about showing how Arthur is a product of a system that just doesn't care about the mentally ill, the poor, the marginalized.
It's saying, look, this isn't just a story about one man's descent into madness. It's about a society that creates the conditions for that madness to happen. And then we have that subway scene.
Oh, you know it.
Everyone knows the one. 3 Wall Street guys, they're harassing Arthur, and he just snaps.
Yeah.
Kills them.
A lot of debate about whether it's self-defense or not.
Absolutely. But that one act is like a catalyst. People start wearing clown masks. They see Arthur as this anti-establishment hero.
Gotham was just waiting for something to kick things off.
And the way the screenplay uses that event to, like, trigger Arthur's transformation into Joker, it's really clever.
So it's like a twisted butterfly effect.
Right. He's already reeling from that revelation about his possible parentage. There's that letter suggesting Thomas Wayne might be his father.
Heavy stuff.
And now, on top of that, he's become this symbol of chaos and rebellion.
Talk about an identity crisis.
Seriously. His identity is shattered, and he latches onto this Joker persona as a way to make sense of this world that's suddenly gone haywire around him.
I can see that. It's like this desperate attempt to reclaim some control, some sense of self.
It's like he's saying, okay, you want a Joker. I'll give you a Joker. But this Joker, he's not some calculated criminal mastermind.
Not the Joker we see in, like, the comics or other Batman movies.
Right. He's raw. He's driven by emotion. This desperate need to be seen and heard, even if it's through violence.
So how do you see this Joker? Is he evil or is he a victim?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is. The film makes you question everything. Is he truly evil, or is he just a product of his environment, a victim of circumstance?
Right. And then it gets even more complicated when you think about how the film ends. Arthur on Murray Franklin's show,
confessing to the murders, and then
shooting Murray on live TV.
that scene is a lot.
It's shocking, but also, like, weirdly cathartic.
I know what you mean.
You almost understand why he does it.
You can see the buildup, all the things that led him to that point.
Exactly. And then, the riots after, it's all chaos.
Mm.
And it leads to the death of Thomas and Martha Wayne.
Which is huge for Batman fans. I mean, talk about a turning point.
That's an understatement. But for me, it's that final shot of Arthur in Arkham Asylum laughing to himself.
About a joke he won't tell, right?
Yeah. That's the image that sticks with you. Like,
Yeah.
is this the Joker? The one who will one day be Batman's arch nemesis? Or is he just a prototype? This tragic figure who kind of paved the way for something even more dangerous.
It's open to interpretation. The film doesn't spoon-feed you the answers.
It doesn't, which is what makes it so fascinating. It's like the ending throws the whole idea of good and evil back at the audience.
Right. Who's really responsible for the mess in Gotham?
Arthur, or the society that created him.
Tough question. And I think that ambiguity, that's what makes Joker more than just a comic book movie.
Oh, definitely. It's a psychological thriller, a social commentary, a tragedy.
All rolled into one.
And let's not forget the way it looks and sounds. The cinematography, the music, the use of color.
It all comes together to create this incredibly unsettling atmosphere, a reflection of Arthur's deteriorating mental state.
Right. Like the colors, did you notice how they become more vibrant, more jarring, as Arthur descends deeper into madness?
Oh, absolutely. It's like the world is visually reflecting his internal chaos.
And the music
It's haunting.
gets under your skin.
So different from a typical superhero score, right?
Yeah,
More like a psychological thriller soundtrack.
yeah. Just ratcheting up the tension, making you feel Arthur's unease and anxiety.
It's masterfully done.
And Joaquin Phoenix's performance. Wow.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Haunting.
Mesmerizing.
It's a performance you can't forget it.
It stays with you.
The screenplay mentioned that he lost a ton of weight for the role.
Mm-hmm.
And you see it in his face, his body.
It's more than just a physical transformation, though.
Oh, absolutely. It's how he moves, how he talks.
How he laughs.
He becomes Arthur Fleck.
It's incredible.
And speaking of the laughter,
Oh, the laughter. So disturbing, yet so compelling.
I know. The screenplay describes him practicing different laughs in the mirror, trying to find the right one.
That's such an interesting detail.
It is. It's both fascinating and terrifying to watch him experiment with this outward expression of what's obviously a really deep internal struggle.
It shows you how much thought Joaquin Phoenix put into every aspect of this role. He wasn't just playing a character, he was embodying a mental state.
And the laughter is a perfect example of that.
Hmm.
It's not just a sound, it's a symptom.
Right, a symptom of Arthur's broken psyche.
Speaking of things that are unsettling, let's talk about the controversy surrounding the film. The Wikipedia page mentions concerns that it might glorify violence.
Yeah, and potentially inspire copycats.
Definitely a valid concern, considering how dark and brutal some parts of the film are.
Definitely a complex issue to unpack. The film doesn't shy away from violence at all, and it presents Arthur as, well, kind of a sympathetic figure despite his actions.
Right. You almost feel for him at times, even when he's doing terrible things.
I think it's important to remember that the film isn't actually condoning the violence.
It's not saying, go out and do this.
It's more like trying to spark a conversation, right? About the things that can lead to violence, about the ways society can fail people and push them to the brink.
It's a cautionary tale.
Asking us to look around, to think about the ways we might be contributing to the problems we're afraid of.
It's challenging us to look inward and outward at the same time.
And that's where the real power of the film lies.
It's about starting conversations, not giving answers.
Right. It's about engaging with these really complicated social issues.
And it definitely did that. The film, it became this cultural phenomenon.
It tapped into a collective anxiety.
People debating its meaning, its implication.
Its impact.
A comic book character becoming this potent cultural symbol. It's fascinating.
And a little bit unsettling, right?
Totally.
It tells you something about the times we live in, We're drawn to stories that reflect our anxieties, our fears.
Even if they're dark and disturbing.
Joker is definitely both of those things.
Absolutely. So we've established Joker as something different.
It's not just popcorn entertainment.
It's a character study.
A social commentary.
A visual and sonic experience.
But how did it all come together? How did the filmmakers take this source material, the story of the Joker, and create something so unique and impactful?
That's what we'll explore in the next part of our deep dive.
You know, one thing that really stood out to me looking back at the screenplay and the Wikipedia page, it's how Joker uses those familiar Batman elements but flips them, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah,
We're in Gotham, there's Thomas and Martha Wayne, even Bruce as a kid,
right.
but it's all different. You don't see it coming.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's like they took these iconic characters and locations, stripped away all the superhero stuff,
Mhm.
and said, okay, what's the bare bones human story here?
Right.
It's almost like a twisted origin story for Gotham itself.
With Arthur as the catalyst for the city's downfall.
Exactly. And because it's so grounded, so realistic, the film taps into some real anxieties we have today
Oh, yeah. The Wikipedia page mentioned how Joker sparked all that debate.
about mental illness, right?
Yeah, and whether the film glorified violence.
Some critics were worried it could even inspire copycats.
I mean, it's a sensitive topic for sure, and those concerns, they're valid, you know?
Absolutely. But I also think the film's impact goes beyond that. It forced us to look at some hard truths about how we treat vulnerable people.
Uh-huh.
That scene where Arthur's social services are cut, no more meds,
Ugh.
it's a stark reminder that the system's meant to help people.
Sometimes they fail the people who need help the most.
And it makes you wonder if things could have been different for Arthur, if he'd gotten the right support,
If society had seen him, really seen him,
recognized his struggles.
could it have changed his path?
That's a question that stays with you.
And it's not just Arthur's story that makes you think, Gotham, it's like a city about to implode.
Wealth inequality, social unrest.
It felt eerily relevant when the film came out.
It still does.
It's like the filmmakers bottled up all our anxieties and poured them onto the screen.
The film isn't just a character study, it's social commentary.
A mirror reflecting our own world back at us.
It's asking us to think about what leads to division,
To anger.
to
It
violence,
challenges us.
to look at our own role in all of it.
And that, I think, is Joker's real strength.
It's more than just entertainment.
It's about engaging with complex issues.
Starting conversations.
And it did that.
Big time.
Joker, it became this phenomenon.
People couldn't stop talking about it.
Debating its meaning.
The implications.
The impact.
People were wearing those Joker masks at protests around the world.
Crazy. Right.
It's almost like the film gave people a way to express a deep frustration.
A frustration that was already there.
In the screenplay, there are moments where you see Arthur just craving connection,
Validation.
but he doesn't know how to get it.
He's so isolated.
Trapped in his own head.
And violence becomes like,
His only language.
there's that line where he says, I just wanted to make people laugh.
Oh man, that line.
It's heartbreaking,
Because you see, he means it.
even though his actions are so.
Not funny at all.
That tragedy, that's what elevates Joker. It's not just a simple villain origin story.
It's deeper than that.
We understand why Arthur becomes the Joker.
Even if we can't condone what he does.
It's like the film is saying, monsters aren't born.
They're made.
And sometimes, the worst things we do.
They come from the most basic human desires.
Connection, recognition, wanting our lives to mean something.
In a world that often feels meaningless.
One thing I found really interesting in the Wikipedia page was the discussion about the ending. Is Arthur locked up in Arkham,
Is that the Joker?
the one we know from the comics?
The one who will torment Batman.
Or is he just a first draft?
Like a prototype Joker.
Setting the stage for the real Joker to come later.
It's such a cool question.
And the film leaves it open. It makes you think about what the Joker really is.
Is it one person?
Or an idea.
A symbol?
This force of chaos that can pop up anywhere, anytime.
That's a really interesting way to think about it.
And it makes the ending even more unsettling. Because even if Arthur hadn't become the Joker,
Someone else would have.
the conditions were there, Gotham was ready for a Joker.
Wow. Yeah. It brings us back to our big question. How did this film in this genre have such a huge impact?
I think because Joker digs into something very real, very human.
It scares us, but it makes us think. It challenges us
It makes us question ourselves.
and the world around us.
And it does all of that while being a really well-made film.
The acting, the cinematography,
The music,
it all works.
Joker, it's artful, it's thought-provoking.
It's a film that's left its mark on our culture.
We've talked about Arthur's story, the impact of the film,
But there's one key thing we haven't really dug into yet.
the craft of it all.
The filmmaking itself.
How did the director, Todd Phillips, actually make this story come alive on screen?
That's what we'll get into in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
Okay, so we've covered the story, the characters, the impact. But now, let's get into the nitty-gritty of the filmmaking itself. How did the director, Todd Phillips, used the language of cinema, all the techniques and tools, to make this story so powerful on screen.
That's where it gets really interesting. You can read the screenplay, but it doesn't capture the full effect of what you see and hear in the film. Like, take the use of color, for instance.
Okay, yeah, the color.
In the
Yeah.
beginning, it's all very muted, washed out, almost drab, reflecting Arthur's bleak, hopeless existence.
Right.
But then, as he starts to lose it, as he goes deeper into madness, the colors, they change.
To get more intense.
More saturated, more vivid, almost nightmarish.
Wow. So it's like we're seeing the world through Arthur's eyes as they change.
Exactly.
And the cinematography, those long, unbroken shots, it's like you're right there in Arthur's head.
You're feeling his anxiety, his paranoia. You're experiencing that detachment from reality alongside him.
There's one shot that really sticks with me. He's in a public bathroom right after the subway murders, and he's dancing.
Yeah.
And the camera's just slowly circling him.
Oh, yeah, I remember that shot.
It's beautiful, but it's also so disturbing.
It's that moment where he kind of embraces the darkness, his power.
It gives me chills just thinking about it.
It's a great example of how the film uses those visual techniques to really get at Arthur's inner state, his emotions, and the music, too. It's such a huge part of it.
Oh, the music. Haunting,
right.
tacked in, adds this whole other layer of unease.
It's not your typical heroic score. It's more like, I don't know, a Hitchcock film or something.
Yeah, more like a psychological thriller, which Joker kind of is.
Totally. Even the quiet moments feel tense, unpredictable because of that music.
It keeps you on edge, like you're waiting for the other shoe to drop,
Exactly. You keep waiting for Arthur to just snap.
And when he does,
It's brutal.
the scene where he kills his mother, it's hard to watch.
Really hard.
It's not just the act itself, but the way it's filmed.
Yeah.
Those quick cuts, the close-ups.
The distorted sound, it's all designed to make you feel that chaos, that violence.
Yeah, that scene's not holding back.
It's raw, it's real.
It shows just how far gone Arthur is by that point. He's not looking for acceptance anymore. He's just lashing out.
At the world that he sees as having rejected him.
And the film doesn't shy away from the consequences either.
Not at all.
Arthur's actions, they have a ripple effect. Gotham descends into riots after Murray Franklin's death.
And that leads directly to, well,
to Bruce Wayne's parents being murdered.
which is, of course, the catalyst for Batman's whole origin story.
It's like Arthur is almost responsible for creating Batman. Without the Joker, without all that chaos.
No Dark Knight.
That's a pretty crazy thought, right?
It's a really interesting take on the whole superhero origin story thing.
Totally. And it kind of brings us full circle to that big question. Why is this Joker so impactful?
I think because the film goes beyond just the typical comic book stuff.
Yeah.
It gets into those deep psychological and social forces that can actually create someone like the Joker.
It's not just a surface level story. It really gets under your skin.
It makes you uncomfortable.
It stays with you.
Exactly. And it does it all through the craft of filmmaking.
The acting, the direction, the cinematography, the music, it all comes together.
It's a complete package.
Well, to our listener, we hope this deep dive has given you a new appreciation for Joker.
It's more than just a comic book movie. It's a reflection of us, a cautionary tale, and a masterpiece of filmmaking.
It really is. And remember, the questions we've explored today, they don't have easy answers. Keep thinking, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the stories that challenge and inspire you.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of Joker. Until next time, keep exploring.